Welcome to the Expatpreneur Series, where we explore the bold moves, global dreams, and real stories of entrepreneurs building their lives and businesses abroad. I'm Kimberly Vanzi of Korea Vanzi, and today I'm excited to introduce a guest whose journey embodies the heart of the series. Joining me is Fosca D'Acierno, the Italy relocation coach, bespoke travel designer, higher education consultant, event planner, writer, and the voice behind Ask Fosca's podcast called 15 with Fosca. She's a true multi-hyphenated expatpreneur whose life in Italy began long before her business did. After first studying in Florence, Fosca fell in love with the city and eventually made it her permanent home in 1998. For over 2 decades, she worked at Stanford University Breyer Center for Overseas Students, guiding students and shaping academic travel experiences. But when traditional job paths stopped aligning, she took a leap and launched her own consulting business and later a podcast that helps people pursue their own Italy dreams. Her journey spans academic leadership, cultural coaching, travel design, relocation support, event planning, and even an appearance as the only non-Italian expert on the reality TV show Best Weekend, showcasing the charm of Chianti to audiences across Italy. Today, we'll dive into what it means to build a portfolio career in Italy, the challenges and the rewards of starting a business here, and the personal transformation behind the professional one. Fosca, welcome to the Expatpreneur Series.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
Well, I'm glad to have you here. I want to start with your backstory. So you are from the US and you came to Florence as a college student. Tell me a little bit about that.
So, yeah, I came for the first, well, not for the first time, but let's say I came for the longest amount of time in the fall of 1990, which really kind of dates me or ages me, if you will, but that's okay. And I came to do the Syracuse program, even though I was studying at Bryn Mawr College. And I did that because Syracuse was the only program that offered me a year-long stay. And I was a comparative literature major, and it was very important to me to try to accomplish as much as possible while I was in Italy in terms of language acquisition and cultural fluency and all that fun stuff.
So you were studying literature when you came over here.
I was
All right.
studying literature. Yes,
What did
exactly.
you fall in love with though with Italy? Because you came back, obviously.
I mean, a lot of things. I think that first time I really think it was just the beauty of everything
Mm-hmm.
and the discovery of so many things. And just, I felt very at home here from the first time I stepped foot in Florence. I tell this story all the time. It was sort of this very magical encounter with the city.
Mm-hmm.
And then, because things are whatever, there were men involved. And I mean, that sounds a little like, it sounds like a lot, but you know what I mean? Ultimately, I went back to the States to get my BA, and then also I continued to get my master's. And then I took a break between the master's and the PhD, came back to Florence, and that's when I met my ex-husband.
Okay. Now you knew Italian before you came here, or you learned it while you were here?
I had started studying as a freshman in college. So when I came here, I had 2 years of college Italian under my belt, which may seem like excellent, and it was, but I didn't like my speaking was not as good as, let's say, my reading, my comprehension, my
Mm-hmm.
writing. But after that year, I wouldn't say I was fluent after that year, but I was really, really much better. I would say I was almost fluent, but fluency takes a long time. People, I don't think, realize how long it really takes. It takes years. It takes a long
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
Fluency, I think, takes a while because you're like talking, you're a lot older. You've learned a lot of obviously English and words. And so when you get here, you could study the grammar, but the problem is recalling the words or knowing the words. So it seems like it does take a while. So
Takes a long time. And so that for me, that's why I wanted to do the year-long program because I was very committed to really mastering the language. And I think I did a pretty good job.
I think you did too. I've heard you
Thank
speak.
you.
Okay, so you were going back and forth, you said from New York to Florence, and then eventually it felt like home. When did this happen? Like, when did you find it felt like home and you decided to move here permanently?
Um, I decided to move here permanently when I got married. And up
Okay.
until then, I have to be perfectly honest also because of sort of the theme of this series. Work was really an issue for me. And building a career here was very difficult when I was in my mid 20s, let's say. And I did every job imaginable. I feel like everyone who comes on here will probably say that, but I really did every job you can imagine. And at a certain point, I was very dissatisfied with the landscape here. And I did go back to New York for work. And then I came back though, and on one of those trips, it was a vacation. And I got engaged. And that was
Hmm.
like, all right, you know what? I'm just going to make the move. But I don't know if it felt like home right away. I don't know. I think maybe it's felt like home once I had my daughter.
When did you like? Okay, so the way I usually say it to people is that there's like for this phrase, like the first 5 years is kind of like you're living in a sort of still kind of dream state, kind of like I'm still learning how to, and then after 5 years, you start to feel a little bit more like it's home and you finally feel like it's home at 10 years. So when did you have your daughter in this whole time
She
span?
was born in 2007. So that was a problem. I got married in 99. So I really
Okay.
moved here definitively, let's say in 98, 99. And so yeah, that would probably, yeah, that makes sense according to your math. And so yeah, I think that once I had her, it felt like, okay, I'm definitely, I have a child here. I have a career at that point. I had been working for Stanford for
Hmm.
quite some time. And so I really felt like, okay, I've put my roots down here. So yeah, I would say right around when she was born.
Just to backtrack for a little bit, you were saying it was quite complicated to find a job here. And then you said your age was, I think, was in the 20s. So that sounds about right in general, whether you're Italian or whether or not you're an expat, that finding a job right out of college or out of university, whichever you're doing, is quite complicated here. And is that like what you were basically
Oh yeah.
experiencing? Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was awful here. And I mean, I'll be honest with you, I went straight from undergrad to grad school. And so I was gonna get the PhD. I wanted to have an academic career, and then I changed my mind.
Hmm.
I at a certain point I felt like academia was not for me. I
Hmm.
did not want to be a professor. I wanted to do other things.
Hmm.
And then I came here and it was like, oh, reality check. And I had lived and worked here I mean, I had done it before, but it was really hard. So I found myself sort of really trying to do anything possible, So I taught English. I was a singer for a while. I did odd jobs. I did a lot of translating, which I loved. I also love teaching. I think teaching teaches you a lot about yourself, and I've
Hmm.
always loved that. But at a certain point, I became really unhappy, and I said, I need to go back to the States, and I need to do something with my life. And whatever. And then, I ultimately came back, but it is the hardest thing about living here. Spoiler alert. Um,
Okay.
but really, comparatively, I would say, and especially although things were maybe a little grim in the mid 90s, also in the States, um, really here it was very hard. And Florence was a very different place. It was not as cosmopolitan as it is now. It was not as international as it is now. It was really a small town, and
Hmm.
there weren't that many job opportunities. Yeah. So,
So, but basically, you took this and you got married, you had your child, you're now living the Italian life, and you changed careers.
so I worked for a long, long time for Stanford University. They have a program here. They have several programs all over the world. And I worked there for over 20 years. And at a certain point, I'm the kind of person who thinks that you constantly need to evolve in life. And I felt stuck and I couldn't find anything else. I looked and I just said, you know what, I'm going to give this a go. And I didn't know what I was going to do. I'll be honest with you. And somebody said to me, oh, with your skills, like with your soft skills, you should go into consulting. And I was like, all right, I'm a consultant. And, and it just sort of kind of, it took on a life of its own, Kim.
Mhm.
I do not have a business background. I am like the total, like I'm very good, I'm very organized, very detail oriented, but I didn't see myself as an entrepreneur. And I would say I didn't, at least for the first year. So I pivoted, as I like to say, from academia to entrepreneurship. And I said, okay, well, what would people need? What do people need? And how can I serve people in a similar way that I've been serving my students and faculty and alumni for, 23 years. So I'm an expert on Italy, whether that be travel or lifestyle or culture or language or what have you. So I sort of made that my little package and of what kind of services I can offer to clients. And yeah, so that's pretty much what I do now. I do a lot of I do travel, I do Italy relocation. I'm an expert obviously on education, so that comes in handy. But yeah, I just sort of reinvented myself, but not really. I think I just kind of like changed my audience, if you will. So instead of doing it for Stanford and just for students or faculty or alumni, my audience just
Expanded yourself.
expanded a little. And then, yeah, and then I do a bunch of other stuff too, but I'm sure we'll talk about that.
You mentioned now where I'm going back to the timeline again. You have your daughter. You've now
Yeah.
started this career, and you say your ex. So somewhere along the line, things have changed
Yes, they have.
in your
Yes.
family life.
Yeah. And, I always joke that I've kind of done everything you could, like, I've seen Italian bureaucracy every which way. Like, I have
Mhm.
so much direct experience. So I separated from my husband in 2014. A lot of people don't know, but it takes a really long time to get divorced in Italy, like a really long time. So we separated in 2014. I don't think our divorce was finalized until, gosh, I think like 2018. It
Okay.
takes, so it was probably not even like the longest time. So yes, so things changed. And when my daughter was 7, I pretty much became mostly a single mom, working more than full time because if anyone who works in study abroad knows those they're jobs that really occupy every aspect of your life. Sometimes you're on call. I often would travel, and
Mhm.
so yeah, and I was here, on my own. So I didn't have, the benefit. A lot of my Italian friends had their parents nearby, and so, they had that kind of familial support, which I did not have. But
Let
we
me, can I ask you, and if you don't, if you just, we can
you can
cut me
ask me
off
any,
if you don't.
you can ask me anything.
Um,
An open book.
so you're, okay, so basically you have now separated from your ex and possibly down the line, not possibly divorced.
Yes.
His family, how did, I mean, his family is here or not?
Yes. Well, they're
So
just outside of Florence. They're in
what
Pistoia.
happened in that? Did they just like, I'm just going on the part of when people separate, what happens usually to the the expat, the foreigner
Yeah.
in this scenario. What happened to them? Because you said you had no support. Did they just disappear, or
No, they didn't disappear.
because some people they do?
No, and I want to say that I still have a very good relationship with all of them. Um, but they were not in Florence.
Ah,
And
okay.
so, being even just outside of Florence and Pistoia or whatever, I mean, they would obviously like my daughter would see them on weekends and, whatever, but the majority of the labor, if you will, the childcare fell on me alone,
Hmm.
daily stuff. And I actually had a wonderful nanny who really was like a mother to me and like a third grandmother to my daughter. So I was actually pretty lucky. I think my ex's family also understood they kind of they understood the
Hmm.
situation. I think they wished that they could have been a little more present, but it wasn't the easiest thing to do. And I kind of, I always find solutions, and I just kind of sucked it up and found the best solutions for me and my daughter to be happy. And I kept something I pride myself on is that my ex-husband and I have an excellent relationship, and I do have a very good relationship with his family. We
Okay.
were all together at my daughter's 18th birthday party this summer, and so I try. I never wanted that to be an issue for her.
Hmm.
Yeah,
That's great. I mean, I'm glad you had at least that connection.
yeah,
So now you are raising your child and career. At some point, you decided to move into the podcasting. How did that
yeah.
get started?
You don't know.
When you starting?
You don't know the story?
No, I don't know that story.
Oh, it's another like it's a typical me kind of story because so it's actually thanks to you
Me.
because yeah, well, I'll tell you because see Florence, well, the Florence for Moms group on Facebook.
Okay.
Like, by the way, like the best thing. Like I've met so many great women through that. And I think at a certain point I threw it out to that group or maybe to the businesses group. I don't remember, but I was looking for a social media manager. And everyone was saying Donna Sharnagle, Donna, who you and I both know.
Hmm.
And but I didn't know her then. And so I met with her and I hired her as my social media manager to launch because I knew that I knew nothing about that world and I needed help. And at a certain point, really early on in working together, she's like, why don't you start a podcast? And I'm like, okay. Um, not knowing anything about
Sure.
podcasts,
I'll just
not
do it.
knowing, I mean, knowing nothing, and also just like kind of stupidly, because I mean, I love the thing is, life is funny because I was thinking about this actually today. I always loved podcasts. And I remember, I would get to Stanford early in the morning, and while I was sort of starting my day, I would always listen to The Daily, which is the New York Times podcast, just to kind of like get my day started. And I always loved podcasts, but I never thought like, oh, that's my dream. I don't have a
Hmm.
journalist background. I've never taken a communication. I'm like a total humanities academic, like that's my background. I'm an artist, like I'm kind of like a little dreamy. And so, but Donna was like, have start a podcast. I was like, okay, let's do this. And 2 years later, it's the greatest love of my life. It's a labor of love, you
Hmm.
know, and you know how much work it takes. I mean, I put in so much work into the podcast, but my greatest joy is is to be able to talk to the people I get to talk to have these interviews, and I really, I just love it. It just fills me with so much satisfaction and happiness. But it was a total fluke. It was just like me being like, okay, like just saying yes, 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 sure, yeah. I mean, if Donna says do a podcast, let's just do a podcast, because if it were an Instagram story or something, right? So that's how I started.
I mean, you're into series five, if I'm correct. So
Yeah.
you've
So
done
we
it, what, 5 years, right? Because you're
no. So
basically,
we divide the seasons into each
oh yeah,
season is
seasons.
actually two. So in other words, it's actually only I'm going into I've only done
Third.
it's the third season. I mean, official, but it has two parts to each season. Does that make sense? So
Hmm.
anyway, it's a little confusing, but I just realized that as of this week, I'll be I will have 70 episodes out,
That's a lot of episodes.
right?
That's
It's
a
a
lot.
lot. It's a
You're
lot.
considered an expert at this point.
Well, and that's we were talking about it a little before off camera, and as I said, like I really do not have any kind of then again, everyone these days has a podcast, right?
Yeah, everybody has a podcast. Everybody's just jumping in.
And so not no very few of them I think have a background in broadcast journalism or in whatever and communication, whatever. But I really it was just an accident. It was an accidental discovery of something that I love very, very much. So I've always liked people. So maybe I like stories. I'm a writer. So maybe, in a way, but I credit the podcast with unleashing and all sorts of other wonderful things that happen and that, that happened and that are happening. But yeah, it was a total Donna's suggestion and me just saying like, sure, I'll defer to the expert and that's it.
I mean, I've listened to a good amount of them and they are really great. I do like listening to them and
Thank
hearing the
you.
stories. So they are interesting. So you did the podcast. Now, you also do consulting. You still do that.
I do. Yeah. So I help clients make their Italy dreams come true, whatever that means. So some of my clients are Italy relocation clients, so people who want to move here permanently. Some of them are just want to move here for a short time. Some might want to study here or have, a more limited experience, but still spend more significant amounts of time here than your average traveler. And then I also have just travel clients, who want to do something a little out of the ordinary. So they might not want to do the typical Italy and they call on me to
Create
help
itinerary.
them. Yeah, and help them craft something really special. And that's
Mhm.
something that I did for many, many years at Stanford. So I feel very comfortable in that role. So the same kind of special experiences that I would craft for my students, I now craft for my clients. I have my first retreat, which I'm working on with some of my collaborators. And that'll be taking place. I'm not sure when this episode will come out, but that's happening in late March, March 25th to
No, it'll be
29th.
out before then. We're going in
Okay.
January for yours. So
It's called Encanto, and I'm working on that with the high-end travel company Exclusive Connection and my friend Mary Shea, who is from Corcetto di Castellina, which is like one of the best wineries here in Tuscany. And so we've put together this beautiful program featuring a lot of just great, like a star-studded cast of people. So I also work a lot now in, yeah, like travel design, I would say.
the relocation, is this like what were you doing kind of? Were you just doing all the paperwork, finding apartments, everything?
You name it. I help find apartments. I can't do any legal advice because I'm not a lawyer, but I can recommend great attorneys. I help people because I know a lot about the school system. I
Mhm.
know the schools. I have contacts. I know a lot about also like just, the work situation here, things like that. So usually I'll help clients with everything from housing to schools if they have kids, but or even schools if they want to learn Italian or study something else, but also something that I do a lot, and this is also sort of a big part of the podcast, as you know, is I do a lot of cultural stuff as
Mhm.
well. So sort of like cultural coaching. And something I would say that is common to many of my clients is that they all really do want to find ways to become integrated in the local society. And so they want my help in finding, maybe activities they can do to meet locals or just to meet other expats or, groups that they can join, groups like WIN or other groups. And so I sort of act as a liaison between my clients and then mostly Florence, but not only. I work with clients who are
In
interested in
Tuscany.
all over Italy, actually.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. So you brought up Win,
I did.
and let's talk about Win. Tell me about Win at this point.
It's
What it
Donna's
is.
fault again. It's Donna's fault again. WIN is the Women's International Network. And again, it was all Donna's fault because one of those first meetings, she said, "Oh, you should come to a WIN meeting." And I was like, I don't think so. Because nothing against Win at all. But for me, like I had spent so many years in a very American situation. And so I had never really sought out like groups of foreign women or groups of
Hmm.
I didn't feel a need for it because I had my America at Stanford, you know? And so I was like, all right, whatever. And I went to an event. It was a women and wine event. I don't know if you were at that event, but that's where
No.
I met a whole bunch of wonderful women, including Mary Shea.
Hmm.
And I loved it. And somehow I was suddenly also on the board. I don't know, Donna, like,
Suddenly.
yeah, Donna was like, come to this win meeting. And why don't you join the board? And so and yeah, and so now I work as our co-speaker coordinator with Elia
Hmm.
Nichols, and she and I work together to bring wonderful guest speakers to our Women's International Network events. And it's one of the ways I know you too. And I always say that win is the gift that keeps on giving. If I had known then what I know now, I would have joined much sooner. But I also think that everything comes at the right time.
Hmm.
I I don't think I didn't have time, Kim, when I was at Stanford and raising my daughter. And
No, you actually put a lot into the actually in the moms group, because I do remember you were posting and you were doing exactly this, the coaching, the integrate, the relocation, helping out all the moms. You would always be there and you would post and we would see like, here's Fosca again.
that's, I didn't think about that, but it's true. Well, I always like helping people. I think that's why, I mean, I think that's why I started the business, also because I was like, well, I like to help people and I'm good at it. I like to solve problems and I like
Hmm.
to find solutions to things. I think creatively and I know a lot of people. I think that's also the key.
Yes.
I know a lot of people. And so usually I know a lot about the city. And so if a mom, I'll be really honest here, but like, being a mom is never easy. Being a mom in a foreign country, I've never been a mom in America either, but you know what I mean? Being a mom far away
And
from
a
your
single mom.
family, being a single mom. My daughter was only 7 when I got separated. And, it's so challenging. And so I always want to help other moms. I do everything I can to help other moms and also just younger women uh, because I feel like I didn't have a lot of help. Like not that anyone was like mean or anything, but I am always I really try to support my younger friends because I think that being a mom can sometimes be a little lonely if you're especially if you're a single mom, but not only. And so I love that group, Kim. I love it. I love it. It's been a great. I recommend it also to all my clients who are moms. You absolutely have to be a part of this group because it's like win. It really like effectively helps. It helps with connections. I've met a lot of those women now in real life.
Hmm.
You know,
Well,
when
there's a lot of them that move over to Win after a certain period, where their
ex-
children are got a lot older. They just
exactly.
move
Yeah.
over.
It's nice that way, but I mean, even like there are moms that, we had seen each other's names for years and maybe we had been in touch and then we would meet in real life and, I would find out, oh, you gave me your daughter's puzzles or something or her books or, just like fun stuff like that. So it's a wonderful community here in Florence. So I'm big on community. Like I talk about it all the time on the podcast. I think if we want to talk about entrepreneurship a little, I am a firm believer that like collaborations are the way to go. Really, networking, but also like true collaborations with like-minded entrepreneurs are incredibly powerful and really get results. Yeah.
Yes, I mean, I agree with the collaboration, and especially here in Italy. Like, would you say that? I mean, you have a service, you offer a service, but it's still, and yours is different than like, say, somebody who does website design like I do.
Right. Right.
But when you are, and you do it for expats, which is also a different story compared to, but if you've ever dealt with the Italian community, a lot of time it's word of mouth and collab. Like you can't, you, it's not like you could sell to them like you can in the US or anywhere else. It's word of
Yeah.
mouth and going that direction to get your business going a lot of times.
Exactly. And even though my clients are mostly American, all of my collaborators, almost all of my collaborators are Italian.
Mm-hmm.
And, I worked in a very Italian environment, even though it was Stanford, it was very Italian. And so I was the only American there for a long time on staff, the only American for a long, long time. And I think that those experiences gave me a very deep understanding of the way the work world functions here. And a lot of the great collaborations I have are just due to the fact that I know how Italians are and what they like to see and how they work. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm in love with the people I collaborate with. They're all just top notch, and I couldn't be happier, whether that be, the place where I record my podcast or, Lucia and Cora at Exclusive Connection. All of my collaborators are just like top notch.
You have a different, obviously, experience of Italy compared to other people. I mean, there's always this mixed communicate, like mixed ideas that people say. Like some are like, "Oh, I had a hard time connecting with the Italians," but I think in your aspect, you have no problems connecting with the Italians.
No, and with Florentines too.
Oh
And
yes,
sometimes
Florentines are
because
specific.
Florentines are notorious, right, for being, and I'll be honest here, Kim, for a long, long time, I did not really have any American friends here. My life was so Italian that
Hmm.
99% of my friends, well, let's say 98, because I have a little group of fantastic Swedish women as well. But for a long time before I went out on my own, I really only had one American friend, my first friend in Florence, Stephanie, who works at the American Institute, and she and I had met when I was teaching there many, many years ago. We just had lunch the other day, so she's still my friend, but I kind of I didn't intentionally avoid Americans, but my daughter was in Italian public school. I
Hmm.
was working at Stanford, as I said, it was all Italians on staff. And then when I went out on my own, I fell into WIN and I fell into the expat community in a much bigger way. And
Hmm.
so my life was very really just almost 100% in Italian with Italians, 24/7.
So you definitely have a different view
Yeah,
than
and I'm
what
always
a lot of others.
surprised. No, but sometimes I'm surprised because I'll meet people who've lived here as long as I have, and like they don't really speak Italian. And I'm like, what? Like, how does that happen? And I realize that it's very easy. It can happen because there is such a big community here, an international community. It's not
Hmm.
American by any, I mean, there's a big American community, but there's just a big international community. And it is quite possible to live here
It
and
is.
really, yeah.
But I think you would say that, and something that I have told also moms and families that have moved here, but I think you would also agree and say that anybody moving here ideally should get out there and learn the language, speak to the, because
Yes.
that is a way to feel adapted than to be speaking only. I mean, I speak a lot of times only English, but speaking English all the time, or your language, whichever it is.
The language is
That
fundamental. It's
Yeah.
fundamental. And I know it's hard, especially if you move here when you're older, but the biggest piece of advice I give to my clients is to learn as much Italian as possible and to plan on enrolling in language school once they get here. It makes
Even
all
simple
the
things
difference.
like going to a store, going to a bread shop, and asking for that. It it gives a connection. It's funny because a lot of times I will do that. I will go, and in the beginning when I was first here, I would go and learn like, how do I say, can
Yes.
I have some bread or whatever, go, and then I would speak it. And what's funny is that they'll turn around and speak English to you. So
I know.
and it's like, no, I'm trying to learn Italian. And they will turn
I would
around and speak it back in English. And I would keep trying in Italian and they would keep speaking back in
I know.
English.
I would memorize stuff. When I was a student here, I would force myself. It was a different Italy. There were more mom and pop shops. I don't even recall very many supermarkets. I mean, they existed, but here in the downtown and stuff, you really had to talk to people if you wanted something. And I would rehearse things in my head, and force myself to talk to people. And I think that's still a kind of a good way of going about it. Even if they do answer in English, just keep trying, just keep pushing in Italian. Maybe they want to practice their English, but you keep
But I
pushing,
think they warm up to you better too. If you
yeah,
start with the Italian, they'll warm up to you. Then you walking in there and saying, "I want bread," or "I want this."
right, whatever.
They,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. You're kind of recognizing their culture. You're recognizing that you're living in another culture, and if you start off, even if it's not the greatest Italian, it's best to still try. That's how I feel.
Yeah, and Italians love it. I think they're really flattered when people are trying to speak the language and showing a real interest in the culture. And so it shows a kind of openness that you have to being in this culture, which I think is fundamental to then really become a part of it in a serious way. Yeah.
Mhm. Is there anything else you would advise, say, somebody who is moving here and starting a job here or trying to start a job here?
The language is the biggest thing, but also I
Yeah.
think really having a deep understanding of the culture. And that's not something you get from social media.
No.
Not at all. That's not like the reality of Italy. I think something, if we want to go back to community, I always recommend to my clients, I say, what are you interested in? Because like I play tennis and
Hmm.
I always say like, okay, if you like pickleball or tennis or swimming or whatever, just join a gym or join a tennis club. You like to dance, in other words, get involved in something you love. I also always recommend, in addition to WIN, but for example, the British Institute, they put on such amazing events, right? And that's a great way to gain access to not only the expat community, but to really penetrate the culture in a serious way and throw yourself into it. That's what I always tell my clients. Just like you got to be a part of it. You'll find your way, you'll find your place, but you need to get out there, and it's nothing's gonna come to you.
What about with children? Because that's one of the discussions that I know you know from the moms group and others, but they come over with children. And I think there are different age brackets that it's easy to introduce them into, say, an Italian public school compared to introducing them into an American or any other school that's like of other languages, like French. There's a French school, there's an American school. I think
Right.
there's a British school, but
There's
the
everything here now. Yeah,
so what would you tell them?
same thing. Get your kids involved with Italians in something. And there are so many options. I think actually for kids, it's much easier. First of all, kids are much more resilient than we are. We're the ones who worry, the parents. The kids, we worry so much about our kids. Part of that is just normal. That's never going to go away. But we worry about our kids fitting in. We worry about our kids being happy. Kids mostly are happy if they're like with other kids doing fun things. And so there are so many options here in Florence. Sports are the obvious one, but even for those who aren't really interested in sports, music is always a great one. Any kind of activities involving art, you
Yeah,
know.
the extracurricular
Florence,
activities,
Florence
definitely.
offers a lot. And I would also, I mean, honestly, all these groups, these great groups, there are great mom groups. I wish there was more stuff for men. I was
Yeah.
talking to clients of mine recently, and they're a couple, and they don't have kids. I mean, they have grown kids. And I was saying, to him, I'm like, I'm sorry, but I don't know why, but there aren't as many that I know of, groups like this for men, the way we have WIN or there are other groups. We're not the only ones for sure.
I have tried that actually. I had a dad's group with the mom's group, and boy, did I try. I we had the dad's group, and we tried. Like I tried to get them to just like go out. I tried talking to one of the dads and saying, "Look, just try to promote it. Like go to a bar or go to a pizzeria or just try to get them out there." No, and I actually interviewed Alex Ingram this morning, and we were talking about this particularly. I think guys have a tendency to keep everything inside. They're not like women who like to actually chat and talk about these things. And they just sort of keep it inside and they don't want to admit it or they don't want to talk about it or they can't talk about it. They feel embarrassed. There's just so many things, I think, factors in there. So I know I really wish there would be, and I wish somebody would do it, but it would have to be a guy who somehow gets to the guys.
But, hopefully, that'll change as well, and we'll see. But for women and for children, I see a whole lot of opportunities to meet Italians, to meet the international community. It's just that nothing, I think the one message that I do send to my clients is you're going to have to work a little. It's you have to work a little. You have to go out and pursue it. Nothing's, I mean, some things might fall on your lap because I often have wonderful encounters that lead to interesting, connections or collaborations or social occasions or what have you. But you really have to work a little at it. So, enroll in a class or join a church. That's another thing I recommend to people. Whatever it is that floats your boat.
No, yeah, you're right. They have to get out there. There was another incident where in the moms group, we'd have like a little separation. And because I guess I was so involved because they were all talking to me in this, but
Yeah.
where the moms, you had different groups. So one moms were like, oh, I'm going to go for it, go out there, present themselves.
Yeah.
And then there were the other ones that were so like, I guess, introverts. They were just so scared. And you could tell them you need to go out there, but they were so scared to even like step foot out of their house. And then they would just get depressed. So I think that, yeah, what you're saying is obviously definitely true. They need to take that step and they need to force themselves to take that step because if not,
Yeah.
you're going to be stuck.
Exactly. And it just, it's a lot of I think something that happens quite naturally if you have kids, it's quite easy to befriend the other parents. And so
Mhm.
another thing that I always encourage and something I always did is, play dates. I always had kids over. I would take everybody's kids on the weekends because I couldn't really take them during the
They
week. But
wanted that. Drop the kids off at
yeah, exactly.
Fosca's.
No, but then it was nice. A lot of us were, I think I got very lucky at my daughter's elementary school because we were a very close group of parents and a lot of us were separated. And we really helped each other. And so it became this really wonderful, supportive community where, for example, they knew that I was kind of off during the week. I was always, busy, busy, busy at work. But if I had a free weekend, I would happily take their kids. And so we just had this really nice community of parents, not just moms, of parents.
Mhm.
And that for me, I think my true appreciation of like the village, like it takes a village. And
Mhm.
that was Jada's elementary school experience. And, I'm not really very close with those parents anymore. We're in the
Well,
last year
she's
of
18
school.
now.
But when we see each other or when we talk to each other, there's so much love there. Like there is
Mhm.
still so much love there. And so I I think that openness, grabbing a coffee, after drop off or taking the kids to the park when you pick them up, things like that really can open a universe for you.
I'm going to jump now. I'm going to go to you were on a reality TV show.
I was.
Talk about that.
Oh man. Well, we were talking before off the air because I don't like being on video. I'm a podcaster for a
Right.
reason. Um, Donna again. I swear. So Donna gets a message on LinkedIn. I'll tell you how I got cast. Donna got a message on LinkedIn,
Mhm.
which she thought was a scam, and it was actually one of the writers or someone from the team at Banijay, which is pretty big production company here. It's Warner Brothers, Italy. And anyway, so they said to her, "We found your profile and we're looking for this and for this new TV show called Best Weekend." And she was going to be out of Italy. She was going to be in the States when they needed her to film. And so she said, "Well, I can't do it, but I know somebody who's perfect for it." And so that began this sort of crazy process, which whatever, I'll spare you the details. But yeah, I did a reality TV show. I never thought I would do a reality TV show. It's important to underscore that I really have no aspirations I had no aspirations of being on TV. It was not something that I even thought I would ever do in my life. I am so glad I did it. It was one of the
It had
best
to be
experiences.
fun. It had to be fun.
It was wild. It was wild. I loved every minute of it. I was very nervous about it. I really pushed myself very far out of my comfort zone at a time in my life where I was feeling very vulnerable. And I, I don't know. I have a lot of gratitude for that experience. I would do it again in a heartbeat. Um, even a reality show, I would do it again in a heartbeat. I learned so much about myself. I learned a lot about what I did, things that I never thought I would do. Yeah, it was crazy. It was wonderful, Kim. And I
Well, you
saw
live
some.
once, and you guess if they give it to you the opportunity, go for it.
Yeah, and honestly, like we became there were three contestants. I was one of three contestants, and we got along so well that, the writers were like, guys, you like each other too much. You have to show a little, competitive spirit. Like you need to not like each other. It was just a phenomenal team of people. Both my fellow contestants, but like everyone working on the show. Like, we had a
Hmm.
huge crew. It was really intense work. I mean, we were on location and we were moving constantly, and there were just like a lot of people involved, like a lot of moving parts. And I don't know, it was thrilling. It was a wonderful experience. I'm very happy I did it. I'm very happy I said yes. I'm very happy they cast me.
It sounds like fun.
It was wild.
So, okay, what would you say? We're talking about your entrepreneurial challenges. Would you say
Yeah.
is the hardest part of starting a business in Italy?
Where do I start?
Oh,
So
okay, there's a lot.
starting a business is not hard. I mean, there's some bureaucratic stuff, but it's nothing compared to like the other bureaucratic stuff. You just need to make sure you have good collaborators, you have a good commercialista and things like that. The problem is not so much starting. I think the problem is staying in business. And for me, the
Mm,
hardest thing, I think the first year was like figuring out how to make money, like figuring out how to get people to pay me, building the business. And I work a lot with the US, and so it's a little different. But as I said, I think the key thing, I don't know what the hardest thing is. I think because it wasn't the hardest thing I've done here, Kim.
okay.
I mean, I'm not saying that starting a business is easy here, but like the actual process of like getting myself set up with the partita IVA and stuff was actually really easy. I think
Well, it is really
it's
easy. So maybe go in a little bit about what they need to do a little bit to get and then to
to get a partita
become
IVA.
an
Yeah, I mean,
right.
you just it's sort of the number you need to be a freelancer here. And for me, it was just a question of I didn't have a commercialista because up until then I had been an employee, and so my
Right.
tax return was so easy. I would just go to the local. It's called CAF. I would just go to the local, easy. It was easy. It was just easy. I
Hmm.
was employed. My taxes. It was all very straightforward. I got a recommendation for commercialista. I went. They were lovely. They helped me. They got me this number, and then, you know, I think there were a lot of startup costs. I think they always are when it comes to business, and I think the greatest challenge was probably just again just finding creative ways to make money, especially that first year. And finding a client base and really understanding where I should be getting my clients from. I think also when I started the business, I think I had a different idea of who my clients would be. I think I had a different idea of what would bring in the most business.
And as a people pleaser, I think did you fall into the category that a lot of fall into where you would having lower prices because you wanted to please them, and then you realize, wait a second, I got a value here, and I need to up it.
That took me a really long time because I mean, I won't get into it all, but I think especially at the beginning, people tend to, okay, so my business name is Ask Fosca. And yes, you can ask me anything, but like you also need to pay me. And so like there's a fine line. Like a lot of people just being like, hey, I want to do this, this, and this. And I'm like, great, here are my services and here's my pricing. I stopped like my first for a long time. I think the first at least 6 months, maybe a year of the business, I was offering a first free consultation. I had to take that away. And I was giving discounts and I was, giving freebies and I'm not a business person and that's not a good idea. And but it's hard when you've been working always. I had always worked, but I had always worked for somebody else. I'd never worked for myself. And so understanding how to give myself the value that I have took a long time. I would say
Did you
it took
go
a,
through imposter syndrome? Which
oh
a
my God, I
lot of
have
people do.
imposter syndrome 24/7 still. Still.
Still?
Yeah. Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah.
I would
Still.
not have guessed that for you right now.
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah. Still often. Yeah, yeah, I do. I do. I mean, I think it's a fairly normal phenomenon.
It is a normal. It is.
But yes, yeah, of course. Yeah, we all deal with that. Yeah. Not all of us, but a lot of us do. Yeah.
I think everybody. I think they do at some point in time, especially if something's going really tough, and you're not getting what you need, or you have to change the way of like you get clients, or you had clients that devalued you and scope creep, as they say with us, where they
Yeah.
literally, if they ask you one question, but oh, we're going to throw in three more, and so
Yeah.
that they then you sit there and you go, I have a better value than this, and I need to up my prices, and I need to like put that boundary down, and I need to say this is what. So let me ask you this, because I deal with a few people and contract. Do you actually create a contract or not? No.
Not really,
Why?
no. It depends. Well, it depends what the services are.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but I usually don't draw up a contract. No. No.
And you've
No.
had no problems with that because, like, I depends on the service, I think, but in
Right.
general, but um,
No, I usually do like I work on retainer. And I usually, so it's we have an agreement, but I've never had anyone say like I'm not going to pay you or something like that. No, I've never had any problem. Well, not yet, at least, and I hope I won't. But I no, I don't draw up contracts with my clients. No, I do an agreement. I mean, well, yeah, because I'll sell my clients like a package of hours. I haven't
if
had
you've had no problems, that's pretty good. I
no,
mean,
no. No, I haven't had problems with that. I have problems with random people who are not my clients who think that they can ask me anything and that I'll do anything for them because one of my things is that I'm very good at networking, I'm very good at connecting, and I'm very good at helping people figure out what they need.
mhm.
And sometimes that's hard to quantify. And so I can't make you like pay me a commission because I connect you to somebody or I give you a good idea but I'm working on saying no.
That's the hardest thing a freelancer to an entrepreneur
Yes.
has to go through, because that a freelancer, you're stuck with, you're in that mindset of they're giving me the job, and you feel that you can't even tell them like your pricing. So even something as simple as like translations, it's always whatever they offer to you and you have to say yes or no or
Yeah.
just do it.
Right.
And when you switch to the entrepreneur, you have to say, you know what? No, this isn't going to benefit me. The amount of time, work, and everything else, it's not going to benefit me.
And it's taken me a while to get there, Kim. Like it's not something that was immediate for me because I was so sort of not desperate at the beginning, but I think it was just so new. And I
Right?
really didn't
Yeah.
know. And I didn't know what would end up sort of making me money and what would end up costing me money. Because even if it's not physically the money, it's your time, which is money.
Right.
Do you know what I'm
That's the
saying? So
part. I
now
think that's the hardest part for people pleasers. The
so
time,
hard.
like
Exactly.
you're so
But
used to
as you
giving it out that you just don't
right.
realize. Wait a second, I should have charged for that.
Yes. And so now I've just become much more savvy about that and I really don't care. Like you like me or you don't. Like I have to pay the bills. I have a lot of demands on my time. I'm really good at what I do. If you want my and I only had one client, surprise surprise he was a man, who when I quoted him my price and he was a he had I gave him a free consultation. He was about to get himself into a real mess. And I gave him a free consultation. And afterwards, it was the end of a Zoom call, and he asked me about my rates, and I told him, and he said, "Oh, that's a lot." And maybe the old me would have been like, "Okay, well, we can, I don't know,
Give a
find it." No,
discount.
and I said to him, I was like, "You're not going to find anybody out there like me." Like that's, and I think the best advice I've gotten since I started the business is like, you need to be sure you're getting paid what you're worth. And
Yeah.
so I always think about that. I always think about that, how, before I take on a client, or when I'm about to do something, I think, okay, let me like kind of try to estimate how much of my time this is going to be, what kind of benefit is there for me. And I didn't always think about that when especially the first year of the business, when the business really didn't even have an identity yet. I was
Hmm.
still trying to figure out what the money makers were going to be, what direction I should be going in.
How
Um,
long would you say that it took you though? Like from realizing finally, so how long would you say you started the business on, like everybody, it starts in the beginning, you have to find your identity and eventually you build a brand.
Only
So
now.
just now. So how many years would you say that was?
I started the business in April 2023. It's December 2025. So it's been a little
Two.
over 2 years. And
Yeah.
it's evolving constantly. It's evolving constantly in ways that I never would have expected. And we're still not where I want to be by any stretch of the imagination. So, the experts say 2 to 3 years. The experts are experts for a reason, right?
Right. Well, yeah, you got to listen to the experts and the correct experts because
That's
nowadays there's
right.
everybody giving out advice all over the place.
Right. So I'm thinking 2026 is actually going to be the year where I really see, I mean, just on the basis of what's happening here, I think 2026 is going to be the really definitive year. Yeah.
And you don't have an effect with AI like some of us, other of us. So that doesn't seem to play, right? I mean, everything, or what about the economy as well?
I feel that people are kind of fearful right now, a bit paralyzed by a whole lot of things.
Mhm.
Um, and that does affect me. It does. AI doesn't affect me as directly
Mhm.
because, the work that I do is, but it kind of affects me because, somebody could also say, "Oh, I want to move to Italy," and they could ask ChatGPT and not contact me, or do the same to plan a trip. Or so I tend to think that my clients are people who prefer human contact. I think
Mhm.
that's like the only skill that I'm like 100% sure that I'm like really that I have, like that I'm very good with other human beings. So hopefully that's my little edge that I'll keep, but I don't know. Like, I don't know, Kim. I don't know. Maybe I'll be replaced. Maybe I already am.
Okay? Did you switch into your transition into entrepreneurship solo, or were you? Did you meet anybody else at that time, or
I was
did you do it by
totally on.
yourself? You're on your own, and you're right now though. You're not on your own, if I recall.
Wait, hold on. You mean on my own, like as a business person or as like a
Well, you
person?
started the business as on your own, but did you have any supportive people at all in your when you started it?
Okay, so yes. So I was at the time when I started the business, I was in a relationship. Um, I think he was supportive of me at the beginning.
You
Um,
think?
a little, I don't know. I think he was like, "You're crazy giving up
Oh,
this job."
okay.
He didn't say that, but I think a lot of Italians,
They
um,
find it secure compared to you going off on your own and actually creating a
like to give up the kind of job that I had. I think a lot of my Italian friends were like, "What?" Whereas my American friends were like, "It's about time." And I kind of am a little stubborn, so I was like, I was going to do it no matter what. Uh, yeah, I mean, he was supportive of me. My daughter was extremely supportive. My family and my friends were very supportive as well. Now I'm single, and so I can dedicate my life
To your work.
without guilt to being the workaholic that I am. Because I am a workaholic. When you work for yourself, I was always a workaholic. I was a workaholic at Stanford. I don't like the term workaholic, but I'll use it for lack of a better word. When you then become an entrepreneur, forget about it. There
That's all
for
you
me,
have. Yeah.
there's no holidays, there's no weekends, I'm really very bad about the fact that I don't tend to have clear boundaries.
Do you
I work a
feel
lot.
guilty when you're not working?
Yeah,
So for example, like oh my God, I have to have another podcast going. I have to have that organized. I have to
something.
have
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do, of course, because you always, I just, the way I describe it is, when people, I haven't talked to somebody in a while and they're like, how are you? I'm like, always hustling, always hustling. And that's, I think when you freelance, you're just always hustling. When you have a salaried job and you're, as I say, you're working for the man, I also had that same kind of level of perfectionism,
Hmm.
dedication to my work, etc. But I'd be like, no, like it's the weekend, that's it. Yeah, I would not, I tried not to look at emails. I tried not to think about work. When when everything depends on you, it's extremely hard to trace those boundaries.
Okay, you work with people who have dreams of studying and traveling and relocating to Italy.
Yeah.
What do people misunderstand about life in Italy, but then end up loving it?
Uh, I don't know that people understand the extent of the bureaucracy until they live here
Oh.
or until they experience it for the first time when they have to go to the consulate. I'm going to give you an example. I love to give this example. When my daughter transitioned from elementary school to middle school, was it when they get the registro elettronico, when they get the whatever they got when you get the app which has all their grades, their
Okay.
absences, things
Okay.
like that. Okay. So I remember going to like the first day of school or whatever, the first meeting at school, and them saying that to get this app, I had to go in person, not to the school, but to like the school, like the Board of Education, whereupon they gave me an envelope with my credentials inside. Do you know what I'm saying? So, like, how is it even possible that this is for something technological, and yet I have
Hmm.
to go pick up an envelope that has my credit? Like, it just was like, okay. So things like that, just, I think it's hard, especially for Americans, to understand
Oh,
just how
yeah.
thick the bureaucracy is. Because, like, I still, when I go to the States and I have to do something like that, I think, like that here, I think I would allot like an hour and a half for or something. There I always end up doing it in like 10 minutes. I'm like, oh, okay.
And on the line and
Yeah,
online half of the
right.
time.
And I think people are surprised or made happy by just how good like the healthcare is and things like that, and the fact that there's still humanity and doctors that will actually like listen to you. This is compared to the US, which has gotten quite difficult, and it's still not, whatever. It's changed also here compared to, I would say, when I first came, but. I think as Americans, we tend to have this idea that, like, oh, American doctors and blah, blah, blah. And the thing is, like, you get really good care here and it like, costs virtually nothing. And, the taxes are very high. That's something that we could
Yes,
talk about
very
as
high.
freelancers. The amount of money I pay for like my Social Security and stuff, that's off. Like, that is something I did not expect. That is
Oh,
something I did not factor in. That's a killer. It's always a surprise. I'm like, oh, what? That's hard. That's hard. Yeah. Anyway, so I would say those things. And then Italy is a wonderful place to live. I think we all know that we live here, and it has so many amazing, wonderful things that I think Italians don't even acknowledge. And I always get angry with them. I'm like, you don't know how easy you have it. Like, you don't know how good you have it. Like people go bankrupt in the US just trying to pay their medical bills, just trying to cure their diseases.
Yeah, the medical in the US
It's
is hard.
huge.
It's
It's
hard
huge.
compared to
It's
here.
huge. Here, you know that, like, God forbid something happens, you will get taken care of. You'll get very good care, and it's not gonna cost you, it's not gonna bankrupt you.
No, the
Everyone has
taxes though might.
taxes
The
might,
taxes
but
are
see, that's the reason why the care is so good. You know what I'm saying? It's like you pay for
yeah.
anyway, and but that's huge, knowing that you'll be taken care of. Like there's a lot of humanity in that.
Anything new that's coming up in Ask Fosca that's going around the corner in the new 2026?
Yes. I mean, well, I can't talk about some of the things yet, but I can
Okay.
tell you that lots of really exciting things are happening. Mostly, I mean, I talked about the retreat already, which is
Hmm.
called Encanto, and we hope it's the first of many, many editions. But there are also, let's say, some really interesting developments with the podcast. What I can say is that your listeners can look forward to a really nice season of great guests. So I'm going to have it'll be an amazing 2026. I've been recording podcasts like a crazy person, and I'll just have so many great guests coming up in 2026. And then I hope I'll be able to share exciting news about other interesting collaborations and developments that are currently happening behind the scenes. And if people can, if they follow me or they want to sign up for my newsletter, they'll be able to hear about that. I wrote my first novel this year.
That's right.
I wrote my first book, and I'm currently pitching it. And so I'm hoping that 2026 brings me finally some news in that regard, and that somebody just takes, as my friend who's also a writer says, just takes one to believe in it. And so I'm hoping to find a publisher, an agent, and hopefully maybe to also write another book in 2026. So I'm putting a lot of faith in this year. I think if we want to get back to the entrepreneur stuff, I really it is not easy. I don't think it's easy anywhere in the world. I don't think Italy is, that different from anywhere else. I think,
Hmm.
the sense of like, this is you. It's just you, and it's a lot of pressure and it's a lot of weight on you and a lot of, but it's a very rewarding thing when you do start to see the fruits of your labor, if you will. But it has not been easy.
Well, thank you, Fosca, for joining me and sharing your story. It's been wonderful. And anybody who wants to follow Fosca, we'll have the information in the description so you can follow Fosca and find out what's going to happen in 2026.
Thank you, Kim. It's been such a pleasure to speak to you. I've loved this. Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Goodness. I want to thank everyone for watching. Thank you for being a part of this very special episode. This project was created to highlight the diverse and influential journey of expats building their lives in Italy and their businesses here as well. If you're an expatpreneur and interested in being featured, feel free to reach out, message me, contact me. You can do it even by commenting in below. This series is just the beginning, and there are many more stories to come. So like and follow anywhere you can. We're on Instagram, we're on YouTube. Until next time, here's to bold moves and global dreams.